My surname isn't even halfway down the alphabet. I am screwed. Hi, welcome to Culture Filter. I am the Phil in Filter, and this is my review of Dot and Bubble, the fifth episode of Doctor Who Season 1, the new Season 1, Series 14, whatever you want to call it. This is an episode that I didn't really know what to expect from going in, other than it was kind of looking like it might have a bit of a Black Mirror type vibe, some commentary on social media perhaps. But the social commentary in this episode goes a lot further and has quite a few different aspects to it, some of which work better than others. Some of it is sublime. Some of it doesn't work quite so well. Some of it may have been completely unintentional. I don't know. So let's get into it, shall we? The commentary that I'm talking about here, there is the obvious, based on if you missed this in the ending, I don't know what you were watching, but the sort of racial commentary that was running through this episode, very subtly to begin with, and building up, and then really hitting home in that final scene. There was that. There was also the commentary around class, slightly. These are the rich kids that are in this environment because of the privilege and the money that they have been given. There is a very strong sense of entitlement from them from the very beginning. So there's that sort of class commentary there as well. Then there's the commentary that I don't think works as well, which is a sort of generational commentary, because there are a few lines in this. The entire place is populated just by young people. I think they said between the ages of 17 and 27. So all of the rich kids have gone there. And there's obviously this social media commentary, which by itself, is a perfectly valid thing to address. It's quite in our real world, there are lots of people that are stuck on their phones, stuck in their own bubble, and that's an aspect that is ripe for satire. What I think this does wrong with it is it focuses it makes it seem like it's saying that it's just a youth thing, when that is not the case. Because the youth of today very much stuck in their phones, but let's not lie to ourselves. So are we. Those of us that are not of the youth, those of us that are rapidly approaching middle age, also stuck in our phones. Those of us those that are maybe older. There are older people that are constantly online, maybe not even on their phones, but on desktop computers, whatever. The being stuck in a bubble of an online world where you are getting repeated messages again and again is not, in the real world, a youth problem. That is a multi-generational problem. And I would argue that actually the older generations maybe struggle with falling into those bubbles a little bit more. Absolutely not saying that young people don't fall into these bubbles and these echo chambers, but generally the media literacy of older generations, including some of my own millennial generation, isn't there as strongly as it may be for people that have grown up in this world. So they're more susceptible, perhaps, to be sucked into these bubbles. And this is a criticism I've seen from several people. I don't want to misrepresent any individual's views, but I've seen a few people address this kind of aspect that this is being written by somebody who is, I think Russell T Davies would class as the boomer generation. And his viewpoint in this episode of writing how, not teenagers, but the young, what would be, I suppose, Gen Z generation, is very not nuanced. Now, you could argue that there's some aspects of the class issue coming in here as well, because these are just the rich, privileged, classed kids. And you could just be saying that, okay, maybe he's saying that they are the ones stuck in this bubble. But it comes across a little bit like he's saying that this is what all young people are like, that they get involved in these bubbles and they get and heads in their phones all the time, heads in social media, and that is their life. And it feels a little bit tacky and not yeah, and it kind of works counter to some of the other messaging in the episode, which makes me think maybe it was unintentional that he did this, and it just comes from his own innate biases slightly, because it sort of runs counter to some of the other commentary in it. And what I mean by that is the commentary around getting stuck in your social media bubbles, getting just, the repeated information again and again, and not seeking out information from more diverse sources, and therefore you're sort of stuck in this racist echo chamber, effectively, is what we get with that sort of strand. That is multi-generational. Because in our real world, that is across all generations, and arguably higher with the older generations, it kind of the two messages there seem to clash and don't work well together. And that is my biggest issue with this episode. But I want to say it is an episode that I really like still, despite that. It's just my biggest issue with it. But I do really like it, and I think the messaging around the social commentary around the sort of the racist angle of the characters is interesting as well. And I think that last scene is so powerful, where these people will just not accept help because the doctor is black, effectively. And I've seen some people online, because I've come to this episode a little bit later than I usually do, because I was working away at the weekend, and so I only really came to it late on Saturday. I watched it for the first time, and I've just rewatched it today on Sunday. So I saw a little bit of the social media talking about it and the various different viewpoints, which I don't usually see before doing my reviews. And generally, I think that last scene has landed really well with people and really affected them emotionally. Now, interestingly, when I watched it first of all on a really long train journey back from Wales, and late last night, and I thought it was a really good episode, but it didn't quite grip me as emotionally as when I rewatched it today. I don't know if that's watching it with less going on around me, with not being in a public place on a train, that I felt more safe to let my feelings out a little bit, maybe, or maybe it was just because I was around my kids and watching it with my kids and having that kind of feeling that this was important for them to grasp as well, that it affected me a lot more. But the second time I watched that last scene, it did literally have me in tears. It affected me that much. And so it was a really powerful ending. I do think I have two criticisms of this episode. One I've already addressed. The other slight criticism is, because we don't I think it could have been even more effective. It was very effective and I loved it, but I think it could have been more effective. And I think it could have been more effective if we'd started off liking Lindy Pepperbean more. Because yes, she was annoying from the beginning, and that's kind of the society they live in. They're all this peppy, slightly annoying, but she was also mean from the beginning as well, and very obviously being mean to people other than the doctor. We'll come to the microaggressions to the doctor in a minute, but because she was also mean to other people, including Ruby, before she knew she was associated with the doctor. So once knew she was associated with the doctor, that makes sense, because then she considers her tarnished or something. But before that, she was still being mean to Ruby. Not as mean as she was to the doctor, but still mean. And there were some other comments that she made here and there, I can't remember any of them specifically, about other people in her world, that, you just get across a feeling that she's not that nice a person generally. So even comparison to her friends, she mutes the person that she doesn't want to hear that has the worries about their friends going missing. She just mutes him. So she's not a very likable person from the offset. And I think this would have been more effective, the strand where we gradually reveal what she is and what the whole society is, if we'd started off really rooting for her. Yes, we may have found her slightly annoying with her peppiness and that kind of whole social media veneer type fakery. But if they had been if they had not made her so mean to other people as well at the start, and really got us on board with liking her at the very start, if finding her slightly grating, but, thinking she's generally a good person, they would have been more effective as we gradually learn more and more about her and they reveal it. Now, they do that. They do gradually, increase how much we dislike her. And that really hits home when she throws the singer, whose name I've forgotten. What was his name? Something September. Ricky September, that was it. Ricky September, just sacrifices him for her own safety. This person who she idolized, loved, and was a mega fan of, and she just instantly right, it's me or him, he's going, and throws him under the bus and gets him killed. That's the moment we really turn against her. And then there's these microaggressions. So the little racist microaggressions before then, the fact that, anytime the Doctor speaks, she's kind of rolling her eyes, all these little jibes at him about, blocking him to start with. There were loads of them throughout. These little things which I'm interested to know if you picked up on the first time you were watching it. Because as I said, I got spoiled a little bit by looking at Twitter. I know I should have stayed off, but I was on a long train journey and a lot of sitting around. So I at train stations before I could even watch the episode. So, I got a little bit spoiled. And I knew these people were mentioning these little microaggressions, so I spotted them. I asked my wife, and she hadn't really spotted them. She just thought she was a mean person, hadn't noticed that they were to the Doctor specifically. She'd noticed her being mean, but she'd also noticed her being mean to Ruby and hadn't really clocked the difference in the way that she was talking to Ruby and the Doctor. And again, if she had been nicer to Ruby, I think it would have emphasised that a little bit more. But I do like the fact that they are subtle microaggressions gradually throughout. And I think it is a good point that Russell makes in the Doctor Who Unleashed, that it's interesting how long people take to clock what sort of society and that this is a racist society they live in, because all the people, how long did it take you to clock that all the people were white in this place? How long did it take for you to clock that she was treating the Doctor even worse, and all these little microaggressions specifically towards him, and some little turns of phrases that she has like, I shouldn't even be talking to you, and you will be, when she tells her friends to listen to him because he might have a point, she says it, with he will be disciplined as well. That's what she says. And, there's little things like that, which are really good for gradually building this up. I just think it would have been slightly more effective if it had started from a place where we, actually generally thought she was a good person. And she, quite clearly from the off isn't. Before I get to the stuff I did like, I wanted to preface, maybe I should have done the likes first, I don't know. But preface it with the stuff that I had an issue with, because overall this was still a really good episode. The Susan Twist cameo this week felt a little bit clunkier than all the other Susan Twist cameos. Not drastically so, but just a little bit more clunky. It's good that they're recognising her. Makes sense that he would recognise her from the from the ambulance, and Ruby thinks that maybe she recognises her from somewhere else. So there's that bleeding in from 73 yards again. So that's interesting. So with all those little niggles that I thought maybe could have been slightly different to improve the episode, I did still really like this episode, and I did enjoy it. It did all the things I want a Doctor Who episode to do. It was interesting, thrilling action at various points. There was, I just remembered another criticism. I'll come back to something in a second. Less about the episode, more about, anyway, I'll come back to that. So there was thrilling action. There was, the characters were there was good acting in it. There was moments of real emotion and heartfeltness that really got me in the feels, as people say. Overall it was a really good episode with some minor flaws. I thought Callie Cook, who played Lindy Pepperbean, was, despite what I think they should have done with her character, she played it brilliantly. She was what she was given. She performed brilliantly and was absolutely one of the highlights in this episode. There was another one that I will come to. In fact, let's come to him now. Ricky September. I thought, who played that? Let me find. Ricky September was Tom Rhys-Harris, who played Ricky September, also did a fantastic job. He was such a good character, and I think an important one to put in there for the various sort of social commentary in this as well, because he was the person as a character that had broken out of his bubble. He barely put his bubble on. He would turn it on briefly to upload his videos, and then he would turn it off and walk around and read books and expand his knowledge and expand his horizons, and as a consequence seemed the least annoying when you met him in person. He was annoying on the screen, but that's because he was singing Itsy Bitsy Teeny Weeny, which is a very annoying song. but in real life, he seemed like a generally nice person. In this society of narcissists, he seemed like just a really kind and genuine person. And he was confident and he was engaging to watch. The actor did a great job. He had a lot of Doctor qualities to him, in fact. I've seen some people say he'd be great coming on as a companion if they'd let him do that. And, like, I think he maybe is a little too similar to the Doctor in terms of what he would do as part of a TARDIS team to being the heroic hero to be part of a TARDIS team. And he works really well as this one-off, and how they used him later on is really effective to show the depravity of Lindy. So I'm glad they didn't do that, but he absolutely would be the one person on that planet that you can believe has broken away from this racist brainwashing and actually would go in the TARDIS, and he'd try and encourage people to go with him. Yeah, he was really good, really enjoyed watching him, and how they used him when Lindy throws him under the bus and diverts the Dot to kill him, because he's actually, his last name begins with C and he's higher up on the alphabet list. I thought that was a really well used moment to show and really, I'd say, turn us against her, but we already don't like her by that point, at least I didn't. But to really hone how not very nice she is. I usually talk about the Doctor and Ruby as well. They weren't in this episode much. I mean, they were on screen throughout the episode, but they weren't the focus of the episode. In a way, it's kind of a Doctor-light episode. The Doctor is in it a lot more than he was last week, when it was absolutely a Doctor-light episode, but it still felt like we weren't following the Doctor and Ruby. They were popping in and out of the narrative. And I don't know, the fact that they'd done that immediately after 73 Yards, where he was barely in it at all, feels odd. I know it was for production reasons, but it's odd that they placed them next to each other in the running order. And it's a shame that we've only got 8 episodes in a longer season. You could have separated them by half a season and it would have been fine. Maybe, why they didn't put it after Rogue. Maybe something happens in Rogue that would change so much that this just narratively wouldn't fit after Rogue. Because there is a line about changing the Doctor's life forever. That often gets used, of course, and it turns out that it doesn't change anybody's life forever. In marketing, that line gets used quite a lot. But maybe it couldn't have gone there for some kind of narrative reason. But having them back-to-back is a little odd. It's a bit of shame that in a season with only 8 episodes, 2 of them barely feature the Doctor. The new Doctor as well, that we're still getting to know. So that's a shame. But when they are on screen, they, usual good chemistry between the 2 of them. There's not much of them in this episode. That's the only downside. It worked in the story. It's just a shame that they're right next to it, another Doctor Light episode. Oh, I do keep thinking of more things that I was a bit iffy about. Again, none of these things really affected my overall enjoyment of the thing. Just in the moment, didn't like them. The way that when the Doctor and Ruby both fawn over Ricky September, I felt a little uncomfortable about the way the Doctor was doing it. Not necessarily that the hotline was fine. We've had the Doctor commenting on people's attractiveness in various different ways. This Doctor does it a bit more overtly, maybe, than other Doctors have done, but we've had that before. We can have that, but the fact that he keeps on, and it gets a little bit like he's objectifying him. And however the Doctor has commented on people before, I don't think he's ever objectified them in that way. And it didn't quite sit right with me. And I want to make this absolutely clear. It is obviously nothing to do with the fact that it's the Doctor. commenting on the fact that another man is hot, that's absolutely fine. You can, and I'm fine with using the word hot even. That's the level of appreciating that I think it can go to. But I don't know, the way he then carried on after that, it felt very kind of a little bit creepy. And I think if you'd had this about, if that had been about a young woman, there might be even more people saying that that was creepy. I don't know. It just didn't quite sit with me because it just felt too objectifying for the Doctor's character. Ruby, I kind of understand it from. But from the Doctor, doesn't quite work. But I think they're all the bits that I had a specific thing to say on. Overall, I think this episode was still really engaging and had a really interesting message that maybe could have been a bit stronger if they'd tweaked a few things, but was still a strong message and a really powerful emotional ending, I think, as well. And Ncuti absolutely plays that really well. I was amazed to find out this was his first scene. This was the first thing he filmed. And what a scene to start with. They say in The Unleashed that they debated whether or not this should be, maybe we should push this back in the schedule so that this is not his first scene, but he delivers. He delivers. The only thing I would say, he delivers in the moment, absolutely, and it works in the moment, but, and I've seen a few people say this, I don't mind that he's emotional and that he does cry. That's good. But the more he cries, the less impact it has. And I think he's shed a tear in every single episode now. And maybe that's his character trait. But I do think it has less impact the more it happens. And if you don't want those moments to have as much impact, that's fine. But if you want them to have as much power when he does do it, needs to be less often. It can still be every season. It can still be several times a season. But when it gets to every episode, it starts to lose its impact a little bit. That's the only thing I'd say about that. But in the moment, it was really good still. That's about all I've got to say. Shall we call in the 4-year-old to see what the 4-year-old thought of it? What have you got there? Show them.
A screwdriver.
Yeah, and?
Inflatable Dalek.
Inflatable Dalek, yeah. So we just watched a new episode of Doctor Who, didn't we?
Yeah.
What did you think of it? Did you like it?
Yeah.
What was your favourite bit?
I liked the bit when the girl had the bubble on his head.
Oh yeah, we did that fun. Would you like one of those?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I know. I mean, they were trying to kill them, so it probably isn't a good idea. Was there anything you didn't like about it?
I didn't like when the monster get the people.
Was that because it was scary?
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of... The Doctor wasn't in this one very much, was he?
No.
No. Did you want more of the Doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That girl went in the bathroom with his bubble on his head.
Yeah. And she was dancing, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Did you like the song?
Yeah.
Well, at least one person likes the song. Well, thank you for watching. Do leave your comments about this episode down below. And let us know what you thought about it. What did you think of every aspect of it? The messaging, the acting, the fact that it was another Dr. Light episode. Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below.
But Dad, did they think I break this?
I don't know.
when I do this.
Let Rowan know if you think he broke that when he pushed the sonic screwdriver into it. He wants to know. You can't disappoint a 4-year-old. Anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon. Goodbye. Say goodbye.